Hello, everyone, and welcome into FCC Talk. I am your host, Jon Rhoades, the Children and Family Minister here at First Christian Church, joined today by our worship minister here at First Christian Church, Dan Stribling. Dan, how you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you doing, John?
I'm doing well. We got some good topics to discuss today. Some
Yeah.
more positive topics today. I was commenting last week that whenever I go to these news sites and I go to the church page and try to figure out what churches are doing in the news, it's always, oh, this pastor got fired, this pastor did this,
Yeah.
this pastor did that. And finally, when I went to the church section, there was a positive news story. So we're going to save that for the last one to talk about
Mhm.
here. Some positive stuff going on in the world that churches are doing. Obviously, not, if you know what I'm talking about, not so much positivity around the event of that happening, but we do like to see churches go out and do some good things and serve their communities. So that's
Right
good.
on. Absolutely.
Yes, yes, yes. If you are listening to FCC Talk for the first time, we want to say thank you for listening and joining us. FCC Talk talks about current events, things like that are going on in the Christian world. We do not do politics, so you won't hear us talking about this politician, that, or whatever. Sometimes our topics might border on political things, but we will not be getting into the politics of it. We think you can get all of that information and all that stuff elsewhere. So we want to relieve you of that when we talk about these things. It's me and the ministers primarily. So we offer ministry insights, also just kind of give you maybe a glimpse into our personal lives with our stories and stuff. But at the end of the day, we want to make sure this isn't a sermon. This isn't, some thing that we're telling you exactly how to live your life. There might be some Bible mentioned here and there, but at the end of the day, this is just us kind of talking about our reactions and things like that with news stories that are going on in the world around us. So, Dan, I think
That's
this
right.
first news
Mhm.
story, how much do you listen to country music?
Um, I follow country music only slightly more than I follow professional football.
So not much.
Not a whole lot. Yeah, country's never really been my thing, especially modern country. I'm not a huge fan, but
Yeah.
I do
Well, do
hear
you know who
I do
Luke
hear
Bryan
a
is,
good
though?
bit. I do know who Luke Bryan is. I mean,
There
I
you
hear
go.
a lot about it, but I don't really listen to the music actively.
Gotcha. I'm trying to think of like a quarterback comparison since you've made the professional football, but honestly, I don't listen to enough country music to have a quarterback comparison for him.
Right, right. The quarterback, that's the guy that throws the ball, right? Right. Okay.
Yes,
Right.
exactly.
Not the guy who guards the goal, the guy who throws the ball. Got
Yeah,
it.
exactly. Exactly. Well, Luke Bryan offers a prayer to Jesus for his children in his final track of his new album. Luke's new album, Jesus Bout My Kids, the final track on his new album, Mind of a Country Boy, is a prayer to Jesus asking guidance and protection over his children. He reflects on the challenges of steering them toward faith, saying, "You do your best to steer them straight and answer all their questions, even though you've got some too." The chorus reflects a shift in his relationship with faith. He says, in the song, he sings, I used to talk to my kids about Jesus. Now I talk to Jesus about my kids," underscoring his resilience on prayer. As a parent, Bryan has also faced significant personal tragedies in his life, including the death of his siblings and niece, which was shaped his faith journey. He and his wife have adopted their niece and nephew after the passing of his sister and brother-in-law. In a broader reflection, Bryan shares that as a parent, his anxieties of getting them through this life will never go away, emphasizing the need to turn it over to Jesus to care for your children beyond what you can control. A lot of
Mhm.
similar stuff there, Dan. You and I are both fathers. I think as we read
Yeah.
through this article, we could both relate in a few different ways. But just specifically for you, how did you relate to maybe some of the story from Luke and maybe some of the words that he put in his new song?
Well, I think the words are very good, and I think what he's sharing through that is actually kind of maybe not like a common experience, but it's one that I've seen before, one that I've felt, and one that I've known others to experience too, because parenthood changes you. As you become a parent, the way you see the world around you changes. You begin to perceive things a little bit differently. You see dangers that you never saw before. You really put on, I think, more of a critical lens about, in how you look at the world around you when you become a parent. And I mean, let's face it, for a lot of people, for a lot of people that kind of walk through those years, those sort of late adolescent, early adulthood years. There's a lot of us that walk through that. And for many of us, that is a period of time in our life where we have the most questions. Maybe we experience the greatest level of, I don't want to say like turning our backs on God. That's a little extreme, but we might experiment, walk away, or just even kind of wonder what all this is about. But for many, many people, and I know this because I've seen this, I've read the stats, you have kids, those kids start to grow, or maybe they're firstborn, and all of a sudden you realize, like, this just kind of dawns on you all of a sudden, oh, wait a minute, this life is a very serious thing, and this stuff really does matter. And we see a great number of, well, I guess you could say, young families sort of returning to church. Usually it's more like not necessarily coming back to church as like recommitting more seriously to it, right? Because it just, having kids really, really puts some serious skin in the game,
Yep.
in terms of that. So I think what he has created here is something that a lot of people are going to relate to, and also is something that's probably going to speak to a lot of people. I don't know anything about Luke Bryan personally, except his public persona. But what he's expressing here is something that is very, very real, that is shared in common with a great number of people. And I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, yeah, I think, like I said, I think a lot of fathers can relate to, the words that Luke had written for the song. You think about anxiety and, what is going to be fixed and stuff like that. I mean, we're both fathers, Dan. We both want
Yeah,
everything to work well for our kids. And if something doesn't work well, we want to get in and fix it, right? I mean, that's what we
absolutely.
want. That's what a lot of fathers want to do. And unfortunately, we cannot always do that. Now, it's easier when they're younger and they are
Hmm.
less self-sufficient and more dependent on you. But as they
That's
get
right.
older, those things change, and it's difficult to try and treat them as you once did. And so then you have to say, well, what in the world can I do for my kids? And the
Yep.
answer is, like Luke had here in the song, prayer. Right? When my anxiety
Hmm.
boils up and starts to get big, all I can do is think to pray.
That's
Now,
right.
Dan,
That's right.
as I
Those are
as
good
I
words.
normally yeah, exactly. As I normally do with these articles, I normally get into the comment section and try to
Mm.
figure out, what are other people saying about them.
Right. What are the
And
responses?
yeah, mixed results. I will say, it's not always bad. The comment section, there's kind of the joke of like, don't go in the comment section. That's scary territory.
Right. Yeah. Right.
It's not always bad, and I will say this, this comment section wasn't terrible. However, there was one part in the article that did mention that Luke has had singles that have not really aligned with faith values a few times. Now, I don't think he's ever
Sure.
had a scandal or anything like that. They didn't mention that in the article, but some of his hit singles are, Country Girl, Shake It For Me, One Margarita,
Yeah.
Drunk on You, That's My Kind of Night, kind of, drinking and partying and stuff like that. And
Very
there were
typical
people,
stuff. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I mean, there were people kind of raising concerns in the comment section about, how do we feel about an artist who, for so long, not just like one album, but for so long was writing, music about, this kind of secular, not really faith-centered stuff. It's not necessarily he's going out and cussing every word in the song and stuff like that, but just it doesn't really align with faith values and stuff like that.
Yeah. Sure. Hmm.
How should we react to somebody who maybe hasn't always put out the most faith-centered content, and then they decide to come out with a song like this about prayer and offering something that's important in their life up to Jesus? What's your thoughts?
Right. Well, I mean, this is actually kind of a complicated topic. We could devote an entire podcast simply to this one topic of, you know, people, how to discern what they do. What does it mean when somebody says one thing and does another, and specifically talking about music and artists and maybe
Right.
celebrities in general, because this is a pretty prevalent topic. First thing I want to say about that is everybody's on a journey. Okay. The person, and I know this because I've seen it from both perspectives. I've seen bands and artists because I do follow music. Music is my thing. So I've seen artists that started out very, very Christian that turn their back on the faith. I've seen others who have started off really far from the faith and have come to Christ. Everybody, when you listen to a single or a song by an artist, you are not getting an idea of who that person is. What you are seeing is a snapshot in time of something that they did in that moment. The person that made that single is not necessarily the person that's going to get out of bed tomorrow morning. Change is constantly happening in everyone's life, and we are all constantly changing, either drawing closer to God or drawing away from Him. There really is no static being in this life. You're either growing closer to the Lord or you're drifting further away from it, right?
Right.
So um, so there is that. The second thing that I would encourage people to do, once again, I don't know anything about Luke Bryan. I really don't know anything about the guy. I do know for him to release those kind of singles is unsurprising because he's a professional country artist. What do people that listen to country music want to hear about? You know, you have to remember, I mean, this is a business, right? And on the inside of this business, they talk about providing a product, right? And if you are a country music consumer, they're going to try. I mean, he's trying to make songs that you'll listen to. So, um, there are artists out there that don't even endorse the things that they sing about, and oftentimes don't even write their own songs. You know, they're they're making a buck. Anyway, I don't want to get too deep into that. What I do want to encourage people to do is be discerning. Okay, make your own decision. If you are sitting there and you go, you know, I really like this new song by Luke Bryan, but he's done this stuff in the past that I don't really think is above board. So I'm just going to veer away from his music. That's your call. I wouldn't go out on the internet and start trying to convince everybody else that Luke Bryan is a
Yeah.
heathen and that you're correct. You know, I mean, don't be one of those people in the comments section we were just, you know, talking about. But be discerning. You know, if that's an issue, just avoid it, right? Just avoid it. With celebrities and with any kind of entertainment, the way that we as people really express how we feel is with our attention and with our wallets. If something's going on that we don't approve of, the best thing you can do, don't give it attention and don't spend money on it. You know, that and when enough of us do that, that begins to send a signal. And I'm seeing evidence of that in other entertainment areas right now. It's very interesting. Second thing is kind of what I touched on a little bit. It's like, don't be too harshly judgmental. I am a member of a few different Christian music Facebook groups, and I don't participate a whole lot. I watch a lot of what's going on in there because I'm very interested to see what the conversations are surrounding, you know, and I kind of follow those for information. Every now and then I'll chime in, but you know, as with most of these kind of public groups, it's mostly a bunch of argument.
Welcome to the
And
internet.
one of welcome to the internet, right? And it's like, how much of that do you really want to stick your nose in, right?
Yeah.
But one of the things that I've noticed being a not just a music fan, but a Christian music fan, right? And most of the Christian music that I listen to is a little more underground, you know, like rock and roll, that's that sort of thing. But um, Christians have a tendency to, and I'm using a very broad generalization here, okay? And I'm saying this: Christian fans in general tend to have this very, very black and white. Um, I want to use the word binary, but that's become so polarizing these days. But it really is. It's fine. It's black or white. It's one or the other
Yeah.
kind of view. Like you are either an upstanding, you know, man of faith who's uncompromising and a great role model leader, or you are the scum of the earth. And I constantly see these conversations revolving around, is such and such a Christian band? And then you get these people in the comments that are arguing over whether the guys in this band are Christians. And it's fine to discern behavior, but it's really the Lord's job to figure out if you're living inside his will or not. We can be discerning, right? Like when the Bible says don't judge, that doesn't mean don't be discerning. Don't look at what people do and, you know, conduct yourself accordingly or make decisions. What it's saying is you don't get to determine the outcome of that person's salvation, right? You don't get to determine the worth or the value of that person because that's in the hands of God. So once again, boy, I went on a long rant about this. Like I said, we could
No,
do a
no,
whole
I think
podcast about this one.
I see what you're I see what you're saying, and I think a lot of it comes down to people want to, and not everybody. This is a very general term, but I think if most people are honest, they can see that this happens in society. Most people just want to be right, you know, and most
Yeah,
people
there's
want
an element
to,
of that.
yeah, they want to know, oh, is this person's intentions good or are they bad? And so I'm going to make a statement, and now, I need to defend that statement with all, because I can't learn from it. So I need to defend that statement now and make sure everybody knows that I'm right. Because even if I learn new information, by golly, I'm still right. It's like, I see some of the concern of somebody who has written previous music that was more secular and things like that, and maybe didn't have anything to do with God. But at the end of the day, it kind of takes me back to when Kanye West put out his worship album, which I don't listen to Kanye West a
Yeah.
whole lot, but I know that he's not had, the best music, the most faith centered music in the past. I shouldn't say not the best. He's, very popular music that a lot of people listen to, but it's
Yeah.
not been the
Yeah.
most faith centered music in the past. And so when he came out with an album that had worship songs on it, I praise God because I thought, well, this is a great thing that, Kanye is obviously seen more in the Lord, and he's wanting to worship God, and we can argue all day about what his intentions are and all that stuff. But at the end of the
Sure.
day, if God is going to be recognized and God is going to be praised, and people are going to speak about how much they feel like they need Him or how much they feel like they desire Him. I'm going to be happy about that,
Sure.
and
Sure.
that's just kind of always the stance I've taken. Am I always going to be right? No, probably not. But I feel like if God is being praised and he's being he's being honored, then I'm gonna I'm gonna do that. Now, if the song I believe is trying to praise God, but maybe they're going about it in a different direction, then I might address that. But for the most part,
Hmm.
that's kind of where I come from on it. So,
Yeah.
so yeah.
Yeah. Be
All
discerning, you know?
All right, Dan. This actually is a good segue. You were talking about, showing your interest in stuff and, there being more content of it. That's actually something that our next topic kind of goes to. So the Chosen TV series is expanding inside and outside kind of the biblical realm. Dallas Jenkins, who is the creator of the project, announced there are 5 new projects during Chosen Con. I didn't know this was a thing, but apparently Chosen
Yeah.
Conference in 2024, including Chosen Adventures. It's an animated series. The Chosen in the Wild with Bear Grylls, an unscripted adventure series. He reassured fans that the mission to spread the gospel remains unchanged, and with creative control staying with him and the entire team. Future projects include a 3-season series of Moses, a limited series on Joseph, and a series in about the Acts of the Apostles. Jenkins emphasized that all projects will stay faithful to the Bible, saying everything must pass the test of being faithful to God, faithful to the Scriptures. The Chosen Adventures will feature a 9-year-old girl named Abby who meets Jesus, while the Chosen in the Wild series will see Bear Grylls exploring the personal lives of cast members from The Chosen. Jenkins teased future plans, hinting at a possible series centered around another significant figure from the book of Acts. He also confirmed the release times for season 5 through 7 of The Chosen. So, some interesting stuff here, Dan. We've seen this TV series, or I guess streaming series now, that has expanded, and they are now putting out new series, not just stuff in the Bible like Moses and Joseph, but they're also doing kind of their adventure series where you learn more about the people who are in the videos, and this series about Abby, the 9-year-old. I'm not sure if that's in the
Yeah.
Bible or what exactly that is. I guess I just don't have enough information on it. The
That
article
one
didn't
sounds weird to me.
yeah,
Yeah.
the article didn't expand a whole lot, but just what's your thoughts on Dallas Jenkins expanding The Chosen to more content that is true to the Bible, but also, kind of real life and maybe also made up a little bit. Not that there's stating
Right.
that it's
Sure.
from the Bible,
Sure.
but yeah, go ahead.
Right. I mean, I don't know. I mean, at this point, The Chosen, I mean, it's such a phenomenon. At this point, it's become a brand and a franchise. So of course they're going to make, I mean, this is the entertainment industry we're talking about. You know, I don't want to get too skeptical about it, but I mean, of course they're going to make more shows, and of course they're going to try to expand the franchise. And of course they're going to do all these kind of things just because that's the business of it. You know, I I don't know. I'm going to come off sounding like a real curmudgeon here if I go too deep into this one. I mean, it just doesn't surprise me that they would want to go in some of these different directions. I have never watched The Chosen. I've never really had any interest in watching it, just because I have a tendency not to trust anything that puts words into Jesus's mouth that he didn't actually speak. You know,
Yeah.
I just, I generally, and once again, we were talking about discernment before. I'm not saying it's wrong to watch The Chosen, and I think that there's a good chance that the show's done quite a bit of good. But part of my own, I guess you could call it personal discernment. It's just a little something. This is just me, everybody. This is nothing that, I would even encourage anybody else to do. This is just a conclusion that I've come to over time, was that I generally tend to stay away from any kind of um, creative media entertainment that puts words in Jesus's mouth, like I said, that he didn't actually say.
Right.
There was this kind of, for
There's like
years, yeah,
devotionals and stuff like that out there that will do
there's
that.
all
So it's not
kinds of,
just
yeah,
TV series and stuff. Sorry, go ahead.
there are even certain, well, I mean, no, I mean, you're absolutely right. There's even certain Bible translations out there that, take a little too much liberty with the words of Jesus. You know what I mean? Like the Message or the Passion translation, where really they are rephrasing
Hmm.
what he said, right? And that begins to get really dangerous. We have to be so careful when we are dealing with the words of Christ, because those words are literally the keys to life and death. Okay. So this is serious, serious stuff we're talking about. So I don't, and it's not like I think that they would be intentionally changing it to manipulate you. I do know that Dallas Jenkins himself has some different theological views than I do. So instantly, I know that the script he writes for Jesus is going to have those theological views nuanced inside of it. I'm sure of that. And that's what we get when we get these kind of creative teams. And, he says, oh, this all has to be approved by our Bible experts. It doesn't necessarily mean you or I would agree with the interpretation of his Bible experts. So once again, watch it. If you enjoy it, enjoy it. But be discerning, as always. Be discerning, and just remember, this is entertainment. Okay,
Right.
The Chosen is entertainment. As Americans, we have a really hard time discerning between the entertainment we consume and real information. And I don't say that for everybody. I'd say that for myself too. We see it in a movie, we tend to just accept it as truth. It's like our brains just want,
Right.
have a hard time piecing that information apart. But just
Yeah.
as you're watching it, just use it for what it is. It's entertainment, and if it makes you love Jesus more, awesome.
Yeah.
Thoughts, John? Please talk.
I've seen The Chosen a number of times, and I know some people that, they love The Chosen and they think that it's fantastic. And I know some people that say they'll never watch The Chosen because they believe it's, heretical and terrible. And I
Hmm.
don't really stand on either side of it. I've always just
Yeah.
seen it the way you kind of said, where it's entertainment, right? Like
Right.
I am
Yeah.
not going to be turning on The Chosen instead of my Bible devotion some morning, say,
Right.
oh, this is what happened in The Chosen this morning. And so this is what I'm going to make the map for my life. I'm not going to do that, but by no means do I think that it's do I think, well, like I said, I haven't seen everything, but by no means have I seen, something that would lead me to believe that, they are not actually doing their best to try and depict the life of Jesus and what happened. Of course, like you said, it is a script that they're writing, so this isn't exactly word for word everything that's going on in scripture and stuff like that. So you do have to understand they are giving some liberties to some different areas, but like I said, at the end of the day, it's entertainment. Now, if Dallas
Yep.
Jenkins got up on stage and said, "This is the truth and God has inspired me," I'd say, "Okay, Joseph Smith." You know,
Right.
Like,
Yeah. Right. Exactly. Yeah.
this is
That
this
should
is
set our discernment alarms, right?
right, and I'd say, okay, we need to be actively making sure people understand what The Chosen is. It's not just entertainment, yada yada yada. But I mean, he's not doing that. He's getting up there and he's talking about what he and his team have created and what they're basing it off of. And so, I mean, as long as you're just using it as entertainment and something, I mean, it's a lot better than some other entertainment that's out there today. So,
Well,
you got to
that's
be
for sure.
entertained.
I mean, that is for sure. Yeah.
If you got to be entertained, it's better than some other stuff out there. But yeah, so I don't really have too many thoughts on it other than the new series that they're coming out with, like Moses and Joseph and stuff like that. Like, I think those could be kind of neat to see
I would
the
be far more inclined to watch those than I would be to watch, stuff about,
right.
Christ himself, because I mean, all these other stories, they're fairly, I mean, they are very specifically documented. It's very, very easy to stay true to the nature of the stories. And they were fallible people just like you and me,
Yeah.
you know? And so I mean, I think a
Yeah.
Moses series could be really cool.
Or if they make like a Noah's Ark series or something like that, where it's just like 6 episodes, one season, 6 episodes of, Noah
Sure.
building the ark and going through. I mean, we've seen movies like that, and they've been, kind of comedy movies as well. What was the one with Steve Carell? I think it was like
Was it Evan Almighty?
Evan Almighty. Yeah, like
Yeah,
those ones, those
that
ones,
movie was a trip.
they're based off like something biblical, but at the end of the day I don't see it as they're trying to rewrite the Bible. I see it as entertainment, and it's kind of funny, and
It
at the end of
just
the
enter
day.
you know what I like about those 2 movies, like Bruce Almighty and Evan Almighty? I mean, Bruce
Yeah, those
Almighty
two.
had some kind of, like, raunchy humor in it, but, the thing I love about those 2 movies, God is the good guy.
Yeah,
How often do you get to watch a movie where God is the good guy? I just thought
yeah.
that was great.
Yeah, and that's the thing, like, I felt like it was fun, and now I don't think, their Moses and Joseph series are gonna be fun like that, but, I mean, just for us to have fun for a minute here, Dan, what would be, not necessarily done by Dallas Jenkins or somebody, but what would be a TV series or a series of episodes that you would wanna see, a biblical character or maybe an event that's happened in the Bible or something like that that you would wanna see a series made on mine. Like I said, mine's Noah's Ark. I think it'd be fun, fun to see kind of a big series like that and get into kind of the cultural stuff and things like that.
Yeah.
But what's yours?
Oh, I would do the Book of Judges.
Oh,
Heck yeah, man. That'd make for some great TV.
it would be there'd be a lot there.
I mean, think about how intense that would be. Like, yeah,
Yep.
that would be pretty heavy stuff. It is a time of chaos in the land of Israel. You could almost do like an Avengers kind of thing, and then
Yeah.
God sent the judges. God, 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 or side, no.
You see Gideon pop up on your screen. Go away.
Right, 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 right. Or
Uh,
Ehud pops up. Hey, you want to shake my hand?
yeah.
Is
Yeah. No,
that
I'm
how you
with you.
say his
That'd be
name? Is it Ehud?
I think it's
Ehud?
Ehud.
Something?
Yeah. Or
Ehud?
Ehud or
Yeah,
something
yeah.
like that.
He was always
Yeah.
my favorite as a kid because they was very specifically, they pointed out he was left-handed, and
Yeah.
I'm left-handed. So that one always stuck with me as a kid.
Well, it was integral to the piece of the story because
Yeah.
there were so many right-handed people. You would think that the sword would be on one side, but nope, it was on
Yep.
the other side because
The
he was left-handed.
left-handed assassin.
Yeah, there we go. There we
So anyway,
go.
yeah, come
So,
on. Come on, chosen crew. Make us a judges series. That would be sweet.
I don't know. They'd have to. They might try to name it something else if you try to the Christian series Judges.
Right, 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 right. Yeah,
That one might
judges,
not play so well with the secular audience.
prepare to be judged.
Oh man. All right, Dan. Let's move on to our final story here. Let me pull it up. I got too into talking about the Noah's Ark and stuff that I forgot to pull up my next stuff. All right. Well, Dan, have you heard about Hurricane Helene that happened? What was it, last weekend? Have you heard about that?
Oh my gosh, who hasn't heard about that? And if you haven't heard about that, go look that up right now because that's serious stuff.
Yeah, a lot of tragedy and a lot of bad things that going on for the people over on the coast. I think what Florida up to North Carolina, I think is
It's
primarily
North
where it's been.
Carolina. Yeah, well,
Yeah,
and it's very far inland too. It's in the mountains. There's a lot of like areas that areas that don't flood are
yeah.
flooded right now. It's insane. Like,
I was
yeah,
listening to somebody on a podcast talking about that, and he was talking about how actually like he is set up in the normal area where hurricanes hit, so they're much better prepared for this kind of stuff.
right.
But
Yeah, yeah,
they haven't been hit hardly at all. It's actually been far more inland where they're not set up for that stuff, and that's why so much more is going on and being difficult to deal with right now because there's just they're not prepared, they
right.
don't normally
Yeah.
get these things, so yeah. Well,
And that's the weird thing is they don't ever get these things. This is a complete freak incident that nobody saw coming.
yeah, yep.
Mhm.
Well, the good news through it all is that faith institutions and many churches from Florida and North Carolina have quickly
Mhm.
activated relief efforts following Hurricane Helene. Many congregations, despite facing challenges themselves, began distributing food, water, and essential supplies to their communities. As Larry Hopus of the Cooperative Baptist Fellowship of North Carolina stated, churches immediately move into how can we serve? I love that quote.
Yes, I
Uh,
love that.
Reaching affected communities has been difficult due to damaged communication networks. Congregations in areas like Western North Carolina have particularly been hit hard, with many churches still struggling to restore cell service and power. We have spent the last 3 days reaching out to pastors and other church leaders, Hovis shared. Disaster response coordinators like Kenny Phillips from CBF emphasizes the need for physical labor to help with debris removal and light construction. Churches like Bayshore Baptist in Florida are hosting displaced families and organizing volunteers to assist in recovery. Congregations not only provide physical help, but also spiritual and emotional support as well. Justin Alexander of First Baptist Hendersonville mentioned that despite running out of food and hygiene products, the church continues distributing what little remains. We're basically now giving out water and ramen noodles, he said. So
Yeah.
this is obviously a huge tragedy, and like we said, if you know anything about it, if you've read anything about it, you've heard of how terrible this is. And like we kind of teased at the beginning, many churches kind of get the news stories written about how terrible things, are with their pastors and how their pastors get fired. But here in this situation, we are hearing about how churches are doing some of the most work on the ground, especially before emergency services have been able to come in to support not just one another, but also people in their community in so many different ways. I mean, Dan, just give me, I guess, your general
Yeah.
thoughts on what's been going on here with the churches
Yeah.
and helping and the relief efforts after Hurricane Helene.
I think it's wonderful. I mean, to me, it's like I read things like this. It's like this right here. This is the church being the church. This is the sort of thing that the church is called to do. And I think it's fascinating because how do I word this? The Lord has built into the church this idea of love and service that when needs arise, this is the church doing what it was called to do. This is part of the core the the core process of the church. Okay, we are called by God to serve and to love and to be there to care for the least of these, to take care of people who cannot help themselves, those sorts of things. And so when the church comes together and rises up and does something like this, I think it is just a thing of beauty, you know. Um, so I'm just all there for it. I don't know what else. I mean, I have no critique.
No, no,
I just think it's all good. I mean, yeah, this is the church being the church. Go church.
yeah,
Especially considering the lack of response from other institutions. I mean, the church. I mean, I saw a video just this morning of some guys who were, I think, employed by, was it like the Tennessee Road Crew, something like that, who literally went to North Carolina, like with a church group, and were rebuilding roads,
Yeah.
that sort of thing. It's just wild and it's great.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think if nothing else, it just serves as an example and a reminder to us who are involved in churches and faith organizations. Like, this is what we're really for. Putting on the Sunday services are great, and providing, all the things that we do for our community are awesome. But in the Bible, it talks about churches were there for one another when they needed
That's
each
right.
other. And, maybe they didn't have a hurricane hit in the Middle East all the time, but
Yeah.
they definitely had struggles and things that happened to them. And especially in this situation where, people, people are hurting and people have died, unfortunately, other people can come in and help. I had somebody I was talking to, they are not a person of faith, and they know that I am. And after Hurricane Helene happened, they
Yeah.
asked me, they said, hey, I'm not trying to accuse you of like, anything. He was like, because I'm not really one way or the other. He was like, I think there
Hmm.
probably is a God, but I don't, really follow that stuff that much. He was like, how do you like believe in God and see stuff like this happen? It's the standard question of
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. It's the same timeless question. Yeah. Mhm.
right. And I just told him, I said, "Well," I said, obviously it is difficult and nobody should undermine the impact what has happened and how tragic it is. I said, but at the end of the day, if everybody would operate under the way that, God has commanded us to, which is in service and help and love, I said, there would be a whole lot less hurting and helpless people. I said, imagine if everybody in our country, our world, the states, wherever, like if everybody came together to help these people who are hurting and going through tragedy. I said things not, we would still regret that those things happened because people died, but people would receive the help and things that they need so much quicker. And so, I just told him, I said, at the end of the day, I don't really focus on, why does God let bad things happen? I try to focus on, bad things happen. What can God do? And what can the people of God do for those people when tragedy and stuff like that happens? Because it's not just hurricanes. There's other tragedies that happen. People lose family members. People, lose their job. Whatever else. Like there are all other kinds of
Right.
tragedies that happen. And I just, that's my belief, is that we as Christians and we as people who follow God need to be ready in every situation to try and help and do whatever we can, whether that's a shoulder to cry on or hands to serve. We have to be ready to do anything we can.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We are the light in a dark world.
Yeah. Last question, Dan. So, light in a
Fire
dark
away.
world, what's the evangelical impact? Obviously, we want to help because we care, but we also want to think about, how can this impact other people and the way they think about the church and God and stuff like that. In your opinion, what is the evangelical impact of churches getting involved and helping in situations like this?
Well, I mean, it's kind of hard to quantify, but I think that we would hope that, through being the church, I mean, when we when we follow the path or do the job that God's given us to do, that in and of itself is a testimony to Christ. That in and of itself brings glory to God, because as the church does what God's commanded us to do, that reflects on him, and that will sort of have this natural tendency of, showing people, because, you talk about being light in a dark world. When people see the light, they want to know what the source is. People are
Right.
drawn to the light. And so when we do these sorts of things, that ultimately, it's kind of up to the free will of the people seeing it. And it's up to God with how he decides to work through those people that are doing it. But the light will be seen. Once again, it's kind of hard to quantify the impact, but we know that the impact will be there. I mean, that's what God does. God works through the church, as the church sort of works through the pain and suffering of the world. That's frontline ministry stuff right there, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. And I think that at the end of the day, when people experience the love, and kindness of Christ, and not just
Yeah,
through him and what we preach about him, but also through his people, I think that's a great tool and a great ministry to have to help them know, because then if they know and they're serving, that's just more help and more caring and more
exactly.
kindness for more people.
Exactly.
So yeah. All right, Dan, good episode. Appreciate you being here for this one. You got anything going on in the worship ministry you want to tell people about before we get out of here?
Now, just Country Day coming up. If you've got something you want to do, we got excuse me. Oh man, ugh, too much coffee. We've got the web form up on the website. If you want to do something, fill that out. Somebody really got my hopes up the other day about a person who might be a juggler. So if you're a juggler and you're listening, I don't have a juggler signed up yet. I think that would be really sweet if we had a
Get a
juggler
juggler
sign up.
routine there. Yeah, that'd be
Yeah,
great.
exactly. That'd be pretty cool, man. But aside from that, we're just geared up for Christmas. We'll have, our Christmas Eve services coming around the corner, and that's about it. We're just kind of trucking right along.
Good stuff. All right. Well, thanks so much for coming on, Dan. We appreciate it. Thank you to everybody who listened to FCC Talk today, tonight, tomorrow, whenever you listen to it. So we really appreciate it. We hope you enjoy these episodes, and we'll be back next week with another episode of FCC Talk, talking about all the news and all those things. So we'll see you later, everybody. Have a good one.